Hello, hello, hello. Oh my goodness. I would like to inform you of something that is very magical. It's Thursday, April 14th, 2011, and this is Day 9 Daily number 286. And this is actually Friendday Wednesday, despite the fact that it's Thursday because my computer detonated on Tuesday, shifting everything back a day. But don't worry, I didn't forget about your needs. Oh my god. Alright, here, but look, check it out, check it out. I, today, am presenting to you one of the most incredible innovators that StarCraft 2 has yet known. None other than the Spaniard himself, Spanishiwa! Say hello, Spanishiwa!
Hello, Day 9!
Yeah, that thick, burly, manly Spanish accent. Today, we learn about the Zerg. It's good. But really, your name's Michael. Are you just American, just straight up?
No. I'm actually 3/4 Filipino, which makes me Asian.
Which makes you Spanishiwa! Alright, cool. Alright, good. We got that established at the very least. Now, before I let Spanishiwa introduce himself, I'm going to scoot my camera up. I'm going to come back up to the level where I like to cast at, and say that today we'll be looking at Spanishiwa's incredibly fancy Zergverse whatever style that revolves around a couple of ideas. Before we jump into those, I want to talk first about the way Zerg normally goes about playing. In the grand scheme of things, the way that we've seen many players like Idra, who's been around since the dawn of time, fiddling with these core ideas, players like Rhett and HeyPro, and pretty much any Zerg you end up seeing, get a Gas Geyser relatively early so they can get a fast Zergling speed upgrade. The Zergling speed is really what lets them prevent probes from getting too far forward with those pylons. It allows you to wrap around Hellion harass easily. If a Protoss player tries to poke at you early, say with one Zealot and one Stalker, which is a style Huck was very commonly opening with, the Speed Zerglings trap that and cut that off. In fact, in a general sense, Speed Zerglings, by virtue of being really, really fast, punish mistakes. If your army moves out and it's too small, it will be killed by a large Speed Zergling army, and you can't run away because the Zerglings are faster. So that was the first core part of typical Zerg strategy. Of course, Zergs wanted to get an expansion in there as well. And then Zerg would try as hard as they could to tech to a layer to get roaches with speed, or maybe a spy, or maybe hydras. But there was this really tense period, and I'm sure Spanishiwa can attest to this, where there was this grossness in going from the early Zergling speed to I have my layer and I'm getting all my jazz and I'm getting my third up. Did you play that style for a while, or have you always played your own style?
I did try to play that normal standard style with the early gas, and as the maps got bigger, I thought that you didn't really need speedlings that soon. And then I just kept pushing out the gas, and eventually I got to 40 supply.
Well, I'm gonna tease the audience for a moment. You've already let everyone know that you did do like around the 40 gas-ish or 40 supply-ish for the gas.
Spoiler alert.
I just spoiler, oh my god, people are going to be freaking out in the chat. The mods are going to have to ban people judiciously. But I'm curious what your experience was when you tried the old style. Like, what motivated you to break away from it? As I open up your thread.
The old style, it felt really delicate,
Oh, yeah.
You get the Mutalisks out, you got the Speedlings, the Banelings, and then if you misclick once with those mutas, a Thor shot comes in and everything dies and you just lose.
Yeah, or if you're, playing on Europe or Korea from America, I can attest that the lag, and it's not even really as bad as, for any of you who haven't done it, the lag isn't as horrific as you might think, but when you're playing Zerg, it feels horrific because, just like you said, you're like, I'm going to skirt along the edge of the base, and you're like, there's a Thor, then the missiles start coming, and you're like, run, get out, and it's just, your life's very sad. So, one day, in all the misery that's going on with Zerg, where people are like, you need to make Zerglings free, all their patch suggestions, we come across this thread on teamliquid.net, and I'm going to bring it on in. Bum-ba-da-dum-bum. Ba-ba! Spanishiwa's no-gas fast expand Zergverse X. And X, as you know, can be whatever you want. And of course, I'm going to call this the Beano Zerg, because it's absolutely no gas. And Spanishiwa wants us to call it the Ice Fisher, which, No, no.
Don't worry about that.
Yeah, that's right. We're going to ignore this. So I want to note how well constructed this thread is, where it's an intro about some, big ideas. And here's an overview of the outline, a lot of thoughts. And look at this. Here's for Zerg versus Terran, and then we can even see the same for Zerg versus Protoss and Zerg versus Zerg. And look, there's replays, tons of replays that you can download to see this in action. So everything that's going to be said today, and look at this, there's even one of Mr. Bitter's episodes there. Mr. Bitter's 12 Week with the Pros, an awesome series that you should check out. There's a huge wealth of resources that Spanishiwa has kindly posted, and it is having a strong impact on the Zerg just trends that we're seeing go on around. So now that we've gotten all that out of the way, Spanishiwa, please give us an intro to the style of Zerg play.
An intro. Well,
what is it? For someone who's literally never even opened up the thread, has no idea who Spanishiwa could possibly be.
Oh, an intro about myself or about the build?
Yeah, actually, who are you? Who are we talking to?
I'm just a StarCraft 2 player.
Cool.
Vile Gaming recently picked me up, so I'm on their lineup. I've been practicing with Vile Hawk and Vile Hash, getting some new builds and some new ideas out of there.
And I wanted to ask, is it Hash or Hashe?
It is actually Hash. Apparently,
Hash?
like, Hash is slang for, like, marijuana or something, so Blizzard, like, decided to block it, and yeah.
But of course, he would not at all be referencing that illegal drug. He's referencing hash tables and programming, which is an extraordinarily efficient data structure. But he's just using the British spelling with the E at the end. Cool.
Right.
So, awesome. And by the way, for any of you who don't know, you can check out Spanishiwa's stream. Is it justin.tv/Spanishiwa? Did I get that right?
Yep.
Yeah, I've been watching that. Ooh, where we get to see your style of play. So now that we know who you are and know where to find you, tell us about the style of play that you've done. And I'm just going to drink water while you do it.
Okay. It basically revolves around getting an early hatchery, and then you delay gas, and you use mainly queens and spine crawlers for defense.
Now, I have to ask, how delayed of the gas is this?
We're talking 32 drones, which can mean 40 to 50 supply, depending on how the game goes.
Nice. Okay. And how many queens are we talking?
3 is absolutely minimum, just because even standard players get 3 for that extra creep spread. But I like to get 4 to 6, and sometimes I'll never stop producing queens in a game, depending on the matchup.
Wow. That's pretty awesome. Now, why is it that you developed this way of playing? Now that we know the what of what it is, why this opening?
Well, I find that it relies a lot on micro and good timings in macro, and other styles I didn't feel the same way. So I could play against what I would consider a lesser opponent, and he could still beat me. But with this build, it really lets your mechanics shine, and so if you're the better player, then hopefully you'll win. So
I'm going to start throwing some things at you rapid style, and you have to answer these like in less than one sentence. Like a phrase with no subject or something like that.
All right.
So we're going to talk about how you defend a variety of early game things. So let's say fast Void Ray or Phoenix Harass.
Queens.
All right, cool. What about a 4 or 5 gate push early on?
Queens and spine crawlers.
All right, sweet. Now what if they do something like it's Xel'Naga Caverns and there's Hellions trying to swing around from all angles?
2 spines, 1 at the mineral line, 1 at the ramp, and then 4 queens, 2 to block the ramp and 1 for injects.
Wow. All right. Let's get some other ones. Yeah. There's some things here about cannon rushes and proxies, but I know we're going to talk about that a little bit later. So no, not going to ask about that. What about for like Zerg vs Zerg, where there's a lot of those speedling baneling busts?
Right. 4 queens really fast, 2 to block the ramp, and spine crawlers within range of the ramp and the hatchery.
Wow, and that actually holds it reasonably well?
Yes, but you have to make sure the spine crawlers are not positioned such that baneling splash would hit more than 1, or else you'll just lose.
Oh, wow. It sounds fragile, but we love fragile. So, there's questions I want to ask about the mid-game and all that jazz, but instead, I'm going to jump into this first game that you have of you against TQ Kyo, and this will serve as an introductory game for any of you who are unfamiliar with Spanishiwa's style. So, are you ready to rock with me?
I am ready. I'm at 0-0-0.
3, 2... Oh, whoops. Let me hit Control-T it, so I'm back down at 0. Okay, cool. 3, 2, 1, play. Alright, so we have TQ Kyo spawning at the top left, and you are at the bottom left as Vile Spanishiwa. So right now I'm going to bump it up to ×2. So there, I just hit the ×2 button. So we're streaming through a little bit, and we'll slow down to ×1 in just a minute, but I wanted to get past the basic early game stuffs. So when will you be throwing down this hatch at your expansion?
I like to do 13 hatchery and 15 spawning pool. Bigger maps like this, you could favor a 16 hatchery, 15 pool, but I just don't like to get my hatchery blocked, so I do the 13.
So it does look like you are building those drones. And any reason why that pool is so late? Doesn't that make you a little bit vulnerable to something like a bunker rush?
Bunker rush, yes, but especially on this map, you don't really see 2 racks that often, so I don't think it's that big of an issue.
So, looks like your hatchery has just gone down. I'm now going to slow it down to ×2. And, yeah, I have a really important question that I'm sure a lot of people will be wondering. We're not going to see this come into play yet. We're just going to, be following around your build. But what is it that you end up doing after you've gotten your expansion set up and you're feeling all comfortable? Do you do the usual Roach Hydra mid-game? Or, I mean, I've seen you do some pretty unorthodox stuff. What is it that you think this build lets you do best?
I like to do a very Zergling-centric style with mass upgrades on the Zerglings, just because you have a large amount of queens, and the Zergling style lets you take macro hatcheries, and instead of putting the macro hatcheries like in your base, you can put them far across the map and defend it with the Speedlings and possibly Nidus Worms.
Sweet. I love that. Now, I have to pause this really fast because for some reason my game sounds are so loud, but as it turns out, I'm hallucinating. So we're resuming in 3, 2, 1, go. I was just all self-conscious. I'm so sorry. Gosh, come back to... I'm flushed right now. You can't see me, Spanishiwa, but I'm just so red. I'm all flustered, man, with this new fancy Zerg style. And I see your 2 queens coming out. In the midst of you explaining this sort of stuff to us, I'll occasionally pop in and just note some of the more noteworthy timings. I'm hanging out right now. It looks like at 4:10, and he's pushing out with the Zealot Stalker push. And now I see you immediately building a Spine Crawler. Was this a response, or is this just something you always do?
Yes, this was a response, and the drone transfer was also a response. I normally only transfer 1 drone, so I have 16 in my main, but I saw the early pressure, so it's necessary. So
you're actually bringing your drones out for a defensive play.
Yep. I saw the Chrono Boost on the gateway, so you just want to be safe.
Now, I want to ask about this extractor that's at the top. Would you consider this just part of good Zerg play or part of your build? Is that, like, fundamental?
I would say this is good Zerg play. It really limits what the Protoss can do, so you're less vulnerable to cheesy tactics.
And it looks like, speaking of cheesy tactics, he's trying to run right up the ramp to your main, but you're just doing some great poking action with the 2 queens. And, a lot of times, I personally get, like, excited if I see my opponent getting, to make a big mistake. Do you get, like, pumped up when this sort of thing is happening, or is this, like, a tenuous situation for you where you're like, ooh, gotta play this really carefully?
Oh, this is no big deal. It's very standard stalker pressure in the early game. So as long as you hold it off without, taking too many hits, then you'll be ahead.
Now, one thing I want to point out that you wrote in your guide, one of the most important aspects you said was joining your main and your natural together with creep is one of, like, the first throwdowns of resources. So definitely we're seeing that come into play as you're joining these 2 things together now. So it looks like you're just now broaching 44 food, and ta-da, 4 geysers pop on down. And I want to pause this right now as you're getting your 4 gas geysers, because, I mean, given my experience with Zerg, I know that you're going to get a huge upswell of gas really quickly, and that this really contrasts with the traditional style of Zerg. Because traditional Zerg is you get 1 extractor, then with your first 100, you get some Zerglings, then maybe you pull some off gas. And then with your next 100, you get a layer. And then while the layer's building, you maybe get a 2nd extractor, so you can start adding on some roaches. And eventually you get to 4 extractors. But you're suddenly going to have a huge swell up in the gas count. So how do you end up sort of playing with those resources, like right when it comes up? What's your plan with that gas?
Well, the initial resources will be dumped into the layer technology and then the Zergling speed.
Layer
and
before
from there,
speed?
What's that?
Layer before speed?
Right. Layer before speed, because there's a big timing window where scouting with slowlings isn't really that effective anymore because it could be easily denied. So you need that overseer as soon as possible.
Oh, so that's what the fast layer's for. Oh, that's pretty cool. Now, what other upgrades are you getting in there? Do you throw down some evolution chambers in the middle here? Because I personally love my upgrades, so I want to get all greedy all of a sudden now.
Yep. I do a double Evo chamber, and the timings line up nicely so that you have a 0 gas until your high or layer tech kicks in.
Ooh, I want to see it in action. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and pause it right now.
Pause it or play?
I'm still paused. I'm actually at 6:38. Sorry if I zoomed right past you. So it looks like he went for a 2-gate pressure into an expand. Now, I'm curious if you have some timings like written down, for your build. Like right when you're building 4 gas, do you have like a general sense of what like a Protoss would be doing?
Yeah, depending on his opening. But my timings really revolve around his expansion timing, and I base up my play off of that.
So, for instance, with this Expo timing, I assume that you're going to see his expansion with your Overseer. That's like the goal with the first Overseer is to check that. And so if you... I feel like you won't be able to... I'm actually going to hit play right now. I feel like you won't be able to spot a 4 or 5 gate early enough. Like, if you get an Overseer, you won't be able to get to this Nexus in time to see if it's going down. So do you just always get these 4 Spine Crawlers?
Well, I put the 4th Spine Crawler because I wasn't sure if it was a 4 gate, and then I poked in with the Slow Overlord to see whether or not I need to cancel the Spine.
Oh,
and cool. I saw the expansion, so I did cancel.
Wow, awesome. Seen a whole bunch of guys get thrown on in there. Now, I want to ask a little bit about these 2 queens that are sitting behind your 3rd Spine Crawler. Do you save up specifically for transfuse? Like, is there management in terms of the energy? Because I know I personally would be tempted to start creep spreading almost immediately, like go out of control with it. But it seems like you would need a lot of transfuses saved up for those pushes.
Yeah, the thing is, you can plant down the creep tumors anytime you want. But if he went for that like MC style 4-gate where he cancels the Nexus at 99%, then you'd just be completely, caught with your pants down.
Now, do you feel caught with your pants down when he does do that sort of MC style?
Oh no, I hold it off every time. I don't think I've ever lost to it actually.
Wow, that's actually cool because, for the record, one of my best friends, Tristan, he held off, or he killed Zelnik with the MC4 gate at MLG. While I watched it live, and I think that may have been the greatest moment of my life. Anyways, it looks like TQKO is going for a 4-gate, pretty typical pressure. Now he's getting his robotics facility out. So what is your game plan going into these stages? Because I'm starting to see a lot of Zerglings getting made. There's your layer coming up. There's your Zergling speed. I see exactly what you mean by the gas not quite coming into play. Or excuse me, the layer tech not coming into play until you spent all your gas on this fanciness. And you're getting ventral sacks right away.
Yep, I feel this is really important because it's one of the only ways I've found to be able to hold off a 6-gate attack with a lot of sentries with this Ling Baneling composition that I have.
Oh, you're going Ling Baneling, and you also are getting a Nidus Worm. Now, I want to actually pause for a moment right now. I'm at 9 minutes and 43 seconds. And it looks like you're going for double upgrades on your Zerglings, and you're getting Banelings. And I think some people, especially if they've been watching Idra's stream recently, have seen that Idra's been favoring a Zergling-Baneling mix in a lot of circumstances, so maybe people are familiar with that. But I'm really intrigued by the Ventral Sac, Nidus Worm, expand to bottom right. What is it about your Beano Zerg opening that makes this like a good thing to transition to? For instance, as opposed to Roach Hydra.
Well, by delaying the layer, you delay what tech path you're going to choose. So you can really choose the perfect tech path that would counter your opponents. Or I guess you hate the word counter, so I shouldn't say that. But would be most effective against your opponent's unit composition.
You don't have to do something like, I'm going to go Roaches because it responds decently against these 4 things, and I don't know which one he's doing. You just get the Overseer, waltz right in, and say, oh, he's doing that, therefore I can do this. Is that kind of what you mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Good. We didn't have to use the word counter. You see how easy that was? That was a good... Simple. So, what is it about what he did that made this the big choice for you? Because I'm looking at your vision at 9 minutes and 43 seconds, and you haven't gotten the chance to pop into his main yet.
I saw his units poke out to my natural, and I saw it was a very gateway-heavy composition, so I figured it had to be like 4 or 5 gates, and so yeah.
Oh, so you just said 4 or 5 gates, just in case he is going for the crazy push. I need to get the Baneling Nest and the Ventral Sacks up.
Well, if I would get Ventral Sacks and Banelings against any composition except for 2 Stargates, and well, with that unit count, I didn't think Stargates would be a possibility.
Yeah, also, I mean, just to note, when you see that many Stalkers, it just eats into Protoss's ability to do almost anything else. We're even seeing that with just 4 gates, he's struggling to even get a Robo Facility up before the 10-minute mark, which is pretty unusual. Again, only if you're going for a lot of Stalkers, so I definitely love that logic. Alright, I'm going to be resuming in 3, 2, 1, play. I'm just now hitting 9 minutes and 45 seconds. So you'll be getting the speed, the pneumatized carapace in a moment, I assume?
Yep.
Unless you're going to be going slow Baneling drops.
No, there it comes up.
Awesome. Alright, cool. So at this point in time, you're just adding on creep. It looks like you're spreading the creep tumors. These spine crawlers, I just like to note, for all people, can be very useful, especially on this map. When you get to this position here by the watchtower, you can just pinch off a lot of movement. Do have to worry a little bit about those doors, but I like the fact that you can always have the mobile offense. Looks like your Baneling Nest is now finishing. Now, so tell us a little bit about what your overarching game plan is at this point in time. You have the unit mix that you think will deal well with the 6 gate. You just poked a little bit. Hello, hello, welcome back again. It's Thursday. It's April 14th still, and this is the second part of Friendday Wednesday on Thursday. We were right in the thick of things, me and Spanishiwa, who's still there, right?
Yes, I'm still here.
Cool, on my computer blue screen in the middle of it. Blue screeners. That was fantastical. So, I'm building an entirely new computer, because that's twice in 1 week. Yeah, awesome. Only during a show, though. My computer has what we call Ihan timing with things. So we're just actually going to jump right back into the game. We were just discussing the fact that Spanishiwa was going for this very interesting Nidus network plus ventral sac Baneling response. We're going to be resuming. Oh, yeah. Hey, thanks, Combust. Washing my back. Boink. All right. We're going to be starting in 3, 2, 1, play. All right. Cool. Awesome. So you were saying that you get the Banelings and the drop just in case he's going for some sort of big gateway play, and because you saw his gateway count, that instigated that response. And the only time you wouldn't go for the big Baneling play is if for some reason you saw lots of Stargate units. And what's generally your response in that case?
Against Stargate units, I like to get a Spire, and then depending if he's gonna really power out the Stargate units, like 3 Stargates, I will double Spire with double upgrades, but if not, I'll just go Spire, and then just a few Infestors to lock down the air units.
Cool. I love Infestors. Yay. So it looks like you were just continuing to build a lot of the good old Carapace, a lot of the good old +1 upgrade. Your Baneling Nest is just finished. And this is where it crashed last time when I was asking, what's your overarching game plan with sending all these units around? What are like some of the tactics or general strategies or locations and terrains you're going to abuse?
Basically, whenever you push out, you want to show that high link count, so he's like instinctively scared. He has to be on top of his army, and then that's when you start doing the multi-pronged drops and the Nidus play, and then you really hammer out the harass.
So here suddenly is the Nidus Worm play, and you know, I want to note how effective this would have been, even if your opponent saw the Nidus Worm, because you still have so many Zerglings at the front, and yeah, there you are, just trying to do the multi-pronged attack in action. And it looks super effective. So in this particular game, it looks like Kyo's doing a pretty decent job of defending it, but he lost a reasonable number of workers. Is this generally this effective?
Even if it's not, this is just a feign so that you can get your 3rd up.
Oh, now that's actually an incredible point. Holy cow! Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. So of course, when he continues to hear the Nidus Worms, that's at the very least going to make him wet himself, at least minorly, and play a little bit more defensively. And I'm seeing you just explode with aggression. I see now you have all these Banelings and Zerglings continuing to move on out. Now, I don't mean to be rude, but I'm noticing that your larva vomiting is a little bit behind. Is it ultra necessary to like constantly vomit the larva with this build? Because I know that, you know, with traditional Zerg play, you need to be perfect with that.
I base it on my resource count and not the larva count, because if you have enough larva so that you have 0 resources, then it doesn't really matter if you have larva or not, in my opinion.
That's actually a really interesting point, because assuming you're using the queens for a lot of the transfuses and a lot of the defensive tools, then I guess that would make sense that you don't actually need to vomit as much, but because I'm a tweak, I'll probably still be vomiting like crazy. Looks like you already have your...
poor play on my part.
It's okay, you made it sound great, man. I love that. Looks like you're getting the infestors and the pathogen glands right now. Still no roach warren, still no hydroden. Any intention on getting those at any point?
Nope. Roaches sometimes, but I don't like to favor them because they're so heavy on the food supply and they're really slow, so you can't really harass effectively with them. Sweet.
And I see you getting a hive right now. It's a relatively early hive. I mean, again, in the traditional Zerg scheme of things, you generally go for like 150 to 170 is when a hive begins popping down. So that way, right as your max, you can do your corruptor morph to broodlord business. But you are just going for that really fast. And now, what is your game plan with those hive tech units?
Basically, I use the Nidus Worms, the drops, and the Speedlings to delay my opponent, you know, keep him on the back foot, and then that early hive is actually early enough that it'll come out before his first push happens.
There's some pretty awesome harass up on that high ground. And there's your 4th base going down. And I mean, I just want to note that from a mini-map perspective, if we just go to Kyo and look at his vision, he's really had no chance to even put pressure on this right side of the map. Seems extremely effective. Noticing you don't have any workers mining at your 2nd base. Did something happen there?
I transferred via the Nidus, and then I would just be replenishing because the hatcheries are closer.
Sick. Seek planning. So it looks like I see 15 drones getting made. So you kind of do a mid-game pressure, and then after you've gotten your infestors, your lings, your banelings sort of up and running, then you bounce back to doing the big drone production? Is that an accurate statement?
I do it because the infestors are really great for delaying pushes and keeping him in his base, so that I feel safe to drone up.
Gosh, this harassment up on the high ground is just brutal, doing the double fungal. So I'm sure this is already whetting a lot of Zerg players' appetites. And again, for any of you who are tuning in at this point, this is the introductory game where we just kind of look at how the strategy looks and feels, and we're already seeing that Kyo is kind of low on units in general. Now, I will note that you busted in here with a bunch of Zerglings and Banelings. Can that always work? Do you always get the chance to cut down on his numbers, or does that sometimes just fail horrifically?
Against Blinkstalkers, it will not work, and you usually skip the high Baneling count and just go straight for infestors. But the point of the quick attack with the Zerglings and Banelings is to lower that sentry count, so that in the late game he can't replace the sentries, or else he'll have a lower Colossus or Void Raid count.
Yeah. I love that logic. Sentries, I really think, are probably the most important thing for any Zerg or any player to be targeting ever, because if he's low on sentries, then he's low on his imbalanced Mega Gosu force field. And of course, the Baneling drops continuing to be unbelievably pressureful. You're expanding like a madman. Now, Artosis loves to say, you know, some great examples of, like, you never end a game with Mutalisks. They're a unit that sort of gives you the situation you want to be in, so you can win with something else. At what point are you really trying to go for the win? Because right now I've seen you do a ton of damage with drops, you cut down on his probe count tremendously, but you still haven't really had the I'm going to bust into his face and win right now move. Are you waiting for the Ultralisk almost always with that?
Yes. The early upgrades on the Zerglings transitions really well to the Hive Tech, because you can go either Ultras or Broodlords, and it'll be effective for both.
We're seeing those really thick, beefy Ultras begin to pop out. And how soon do you end up pushing? Like, what is the play that you go for? I mean, at this point, it just looks like you're completely dominating your opponent.
In this position, I would wait for 200-200 just because I feel like I have an advantage with all the bases and how defensive he's playing. So it's really game dependent.
So I want to ask something. In this game, what was the point where you felt like, yeah, I've got this one? Or, because I mean, at this point, I mean, it's 181 food to barely of a barely 3 base Protoss to, you know, 4.5 base Zerg. Was there a play
felt...
where you were just like, yeah, I got it? Because I know a lot of people will probably be like, yeah, but that Nidus Worm got down, and you can't always guarantee that.
I felt like I had the game won when his initial Stalker Harass didn't do any damage.
Really? That early?
Yes, because I went for the fast hatch, and then he went for the quick second gateway. And if you don't do any damage with that, you're really going to fall behind, especially with this delayed gas build.
So you were essentially exploiting him from that moment on. I mean, like, is there a play that this game worked really well that doesn't normally work so well?
What do you mean by that?
Here, I'll pause it right here before this huge-ass battle. You know, like, because in this game, I've seen the Baneling drops land. I saw the Zergling Baneling push at the start, do a lot of damage. I saw the Nidus Worm in his main do a lot of damage. I saw the Fungal Growth at his third base do a lot of damage. Is it typical for them all to be that effective? Or do you often end up in a situation where, like, say you just, like... What am I trying to say? Oh, yeah, do you often end up in a game situation where you just really can't get all those things to be that effective?
The early attack with the Banelings and Zerglings, that will always get the sentries just because they rely on the force field to save them. And you're attacking his base, so there's nowhere for him to back up. There's no ground to maneuver with. And the Baneling drops, it's true, sometimes they're not effective, but as you can see, I'm at 2039 right now, and I just loaded up Infestors instead of Banelings, and that will be much more effective. So there's lots of different techniques you can use for harassing, and 9 times out of 10, even a really, really solid player isn't going to be able to stop each and every one of them.
Sick. So I'm going to go ahead and resume this in 3, 2, 1, playing it. And your Ultralis easily knocked down the force fields. There's very little that he can do about that. And man, that is looking awfully one-sided. Holy crap, that is really effective. And there's the good game. Dunsies.
Did you catch the Infestors at his natural?
Oh no, I didn't. Let me back up. Which natural? Oh, that
his natural base.
Oh.
Sneaky, sneaky.
Look at you. And here it comes again. Boom. Awesome. And you have... Oh, he has 28 workers. Alright. Alright. So what I want to do is I want to load up this second game that you played against Jimag on MLG Metalopolis. And I'm, of course, going to be pausing right when that bad boy gets started up. For some reason, my game sounds are just so freaking loud today. I don't know what's with them. I had to turn them down. It was so tragic. I'll even just look into that right now while we're getting that loaded up. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about this game and why exactly it ended up being so... why this game was, you know, a significant example in the scheme of things.
This game right now, or the MLG Metalopolis?
The Metalopolis game. I'm going to start it in 3, 2, 1, play it.
Let me load that up. I have to find it in the replay folder.
That's cool. That's cool. No one's just waiting for you or anything.
Oh god, I totally misclicked and loaded a random replay.
It's really rude of you to make people wait. I mean, I know that I had, like, a blue screen that, like, delayed it, like, 10 minutes. Replay not loaded. It's unacceptable. So, tell me when you are locked and loaded and ready to go. Yeah. Is it time? Is it time?
It's almost time. It's loading.
Oh my god, I can't wait.
It's time.
Alright,
so
going live.
We should do a countdown.
Going live in 10, 2, 1, play. And I now am going to increase the game sounds a teensy-tiny bit. Yeah. And of course, Marky, please let me know if the sound levels are balanced. I rebalanced everything before we ended up getting loaded up. And Spanishiwa, if you'd be so kind as to just do a +2 with me. So I'm already going +2 right now, where you're at the bottom. And I think we'll just +2 through this entire game, so that way we can get on to the third game you shared with us, which was the Zerg vs. Terran game, which we might also have to go through a little bit more quickly, just in case. So you see you at the south position.
Yep.
And so tell us what's going to happen in this game.
What's going to happen is I'm going to go for that early hatch, like I said. But I fake the gas here. This is not... I don't intend to take this gas. It's just to show him, and hopefully he won't block my expansion. But as you can see, he's on top of that, so he's going to block it anyway.
All right, cool.
It's no big deal for me though because this map is very good for taking a third.
It looks like he has a pretty sick read on you.
Yeah, apparently I've been getting popular, so people know my playstyle.
Yeah, you like broods. Didn't really get the chance to see that last game, but no big deal. Jim Ag is going to do his usual jazz. Now, in this circumstance, it feels like this might be really hard for your style because you're so low on any fast units that you really need that creep joined together, and you even seemed a little spine crawler dependent.
I don't think so. I think if you just increase the number of queens to make up for the distance and delay your gas a bit more, then you'll be just fine.
Wow. A bold statement. You even see the double rally going on at that expo. There's the 2 queens popping out right now. Is he actually going to open up with some crazy aggression?
Yes, he will. This will be extremely heavy aggression.
Yay! Because, I mean, almost everyone always asks, you know, well, we saw in that last game you held it off pretty easily. What do you do if you can't hold it off really easily, if there's something crazy going on? I see it looks like your queen count is already at 3, and you're getting 2 more. Will you be getting a 6th queen even?
I will be producing queens non-stop because I scout the 5-gate, so...
Now, will you always suicide this Overlord on in to spot this?
I saw the expansion timing was very delayed, and even though he had that pylon there, I just had a feeling that it could be something really cheesy, you know?
And I see you making only slowlings. I mean, I personally would be tempted to make a lot of drones while I'm continuing to queen and spine crawler here, but is there any need to do that with this style, or can you just mass queen it up hard?
I knew I was ahead by a lot, so I just wanted to make sure I didn't die. And then I'd have to gain 1. So.
Hey! Thank you. Thank you very much for the shout-out. I do appreciate that. Was this for Friendday Monday or something?
No, this was actually on Mr. Bitter's 12 Weeks with the Pros.
Yeah.
And, so...
Wow, and this is actually insane. You have so many frickin' queens, dude.
Yeah.
You could just do like a slow queen push and you could win the game. Please tell me you do that.
Unfortunately not. I tried to poke in with the slow links to see if I could do any damage, but they're just so slow.
Well, how tragic. There the Zerglings now popping on back to the base. And again, are you just going to be going for the usual suddenly throwing down 4 geysers? It looks like you have 2 here. But are you... you know, I guess I want to ask... What are, like, the core guiding principles in your play? Which is, like, feel free to make as many queens as possible, get layer before speed, delay gas as much as you need. Are there some other ones that... Or am I misstating anything?
You basically delay gas as long as you can. And in this case, I held off the early aggression, so I didn't need all 4 gas at once. I could just go for 2 and then take a quicker third.
This almost looks really easy. Have you noticed your win rate just, like, increase a ton with this style?
Yes, it has. Partly because it's so unique, and partly because I like the style.
And I'm curious, what sorts of things end up just busting through and killing you off?
If you don't scout cheese, you're just gonna lose, usually. But that's pretty rare. It's pretty easy to scout it, in my opinion.
How early do you send out that first scouting drone?
It depends on the map where I feel the drone will get there in time, because you can always mineral path through his first zealot, so you can send it as late as 15 or 16.
Nice. Your queens, your beefy queens, continue to hang out. You're getting your third up. I'm actually going to go ahead and just times 4 this up so that we can load up the next game, because I think it's just so clear how much of an advantage you have, but I'm really shocked at how ridiculously easy that was to hold off. Was there ever any moment of tension, or were you just kind of like, LOL, 5-gate?
Yeah, I was calm the whole time. I was actually speaking with Mr. Bitters on Skype when it happened.
Wow, well this is looking pretty strong. Here comes the Baneling drop that you usually do. There's Zerglings swinging in the front, but oh no, there are Banelings raining down on you. The pros did not manage to do so well.
Did you miss the Overseers contaminating his robotics?
Oh, I so saw it. Yeah,
Oh,
like
okay.
triple contaminate, blah, GG. Look, he's delighted to have been absolutely face stomped. That was so cool. So I want to load up this last game where you are playing. It looks like a long game against Terran player. It's going to be on Shakuras Plateau. So you excuse me, had to get a little bit of stretching out of the way. So against Terran, now we're suddenly in a different matchup and all. What changes now? Because obviously you have to do different things against different races and different matchups, but against this Terran player, I'm not actually going to speed it up at the start, so you can tell us a little bit about some of those early and mid-game considerations.
Okay. Have we started the replay yet?
No.
Okay, just making sure.
3, 2, 1, play. Let's actually ×2 it, so I'm at ×2 now. So tell us a little bit about that opening.
It's gonna revolve around the same concepts, except this map, the natural is very easy to defend, so you can cut back on the spine crawlers. And, of course, you're always going to be wanting to scout so that you can react to what your opponent does.
So do you set up a lot of suicidal overlords whenever you're playing against anyone?
No, I usually just check his natural, and I base my timings off that, just like in the ZVP matchup.
Nice. So what mid-game mixture do you go for? Because we saw Zergling, Baneling with lots of Nidus Worms and drops. What do you do against Terrans generally in terms of your mid-game?
I like a high, heavily upgraded Zergling count with a few Banelings and Infestors mostly.
Cool. So almost pure Ling Infestor, but just with a splash of Baneling.
Yeah, you want the majority of your gas to be going for Infestors.
Cool, cool. So we do see your 16 hatch going down. We haven't really gotten the chance to see that blocked on a map that would be too rough to hold off. But I mean, a lot of Terran players will block your hatch. Do you still just try to throw a third down somewhere else?
You can do the 13, and it won't be blocked by a 9 scout on this map. But Terran, really, if you just pull out the second drone, I don't see how they could block it.
What about players like QXC who might send out a really early drone scout on Xel'Naga Caverns and build a engineering bay?
Oh, well, then you have to adjust your playstyle based on his, because you have to keep in mind that he did invest a lot in that early engineering bay.
So, but I mean, generally, I was talking to you a little bit about this before. It sounded like you just pretty much do the exact same thing, but you just get a pool and expand a little bit later.
Yep, that's exactly what happens.
Sweet. So it's really not the biggest deal in the world, is what you're saying.
Yep. And even most maps you can just take the third, but obviously there's some like Xel'Naga Caverns where it might not be viable.
And whoa, you're taking a third extremely, extremely early, and I'm actually going to slow it down. So right now I'm about to hit 6-minute marks, and I'm at ×1 speed. What is it that you saw that motivated you to take this third so ridiculously quickly?
Well, it was a combination of a few factors. The first factor, if you didn't see, I sent up a drone to his natural, and I had intended to hatchery block the three barracks wall, and I was hoping to end it early there. But I was a few seconds too late, so I cut my 4th queen and went for the quicker third to keep on an even scale with the Terran economy.
So you just wanted to get that base up as quickly as possible, after you saw that he was going to be in a little bit more of a defensive position for a time?
Yep. Because you're seeding map control with his build, but his build is also seeding map control. So you
want to seed it again.
Yeah.
All right, cool. That makes absolute sense. I mean, you're just doing such a hardcore powering, droning, larva-ing build. There's no reason not to exploit that if you're allowed to. So again, are you going to be spending your first 100 gas on speed, or are you going to be getting the layer really, really quickly?
The layer, of course, because I want to make sure that there's like no crazy Banshee build or something like that. And scouting information is always key to make sure, because the 3 barracks wall with the tech lab I see producing, that's a good tip-off for bio, but, you know, sometimes people do weird things, so you just want to be sure.
So it looks like the method that you're going to be using to hold this off is just to go for the usual Baneling-Zergling mix. And when do you begin flooding those Zerglings? Because right now I still see 18 drones in production for you.
I based my timings off of his stim tech timing, so I know that I'm free to drone at this time.
And is that because you saw his tech lab build, and then you just look at the clock and add 3 minutes?
Yep.
Easy peasy. And for any of you who didn't know, this little tech lab glows when it's doing things. Yeah. Assuming you have the high graphic settings, I don't know if it does it at the really low. Do you have it on the lowest graphics?
Yep, it does. It does.
All right, cool.
And I do play on lowest.
Oh, one of those pro gamers who plays on the low. I'm like a total medium pro gamer. I actually did observing for so long due to the daily that like my brain does not function well on the low graphic settings. So I just accepted what my brain was telling me. I see these 2 barracks going down for you, or for 1 shield in the main. It looks like he's doing a pretty typical push. And you know, one thing that I want to point out to just all the viewers who are watching is just how easy this looks. And it looks clearly like you're going to have a comfortable amount of stuff to deal with his push that's upcoming.
Yep. You can actually check the harvester count, and it gets pretty ridiculous because of the delayed gas.
Huh. Well, you're already at 60 food, getting the +2/+2 upgrades. We're just about to hit the 10-minute mark. And I'm curious, what is it that actually kills you? Because I'm talking about, like, Herb Dirt, look how easy it is. It looks like 1 shield forgetting that this is a new version of Shakuras Plateau. He's still going to push down the back door. But what is it that, like, gets you?
Things that kill me is very aggressive 2-base medevac drops, because infestors are not the best at stopping drops, and my multitasking isn't, like Gosu Pro, so...
I'm curious about, like, doing things like what Damaga does, like just throwing down 3 spine crawlers at every single possible angle where there could be a drop. I mean, do you feel that that's a possible way to play, just to cut the Zerglings and to mass up the infestors and spine crawlers?
Usually, if I think it's drop play, I'll get a Spire purely for 6 mutas, and that's it, and probably the Carapace to transition into Broodlord's late game. But if I forget to do that, then yes, I will heavily spine my expansions.
And we do see more medevac dropping coming out. So what's going through your head right now? I assume that this is probably something a little unusual that 1 shield's doing, that you probably don't experience this as much, because I personally haven't experienced it a lot when I play Zerg.
I was going to give up my main, and then I had planned to do heavy economic damage to his 2-base economy, and then I would double expand behind it to catch up.
So it looks like you are just totally sacking that main, this poor little evolution chamber. And then you're just rolling right on in the front, and it looks... Oh, look at this little hole here. That's so convenient. Oh, and he's trying to lift up. You can't leave. That is so cool. This seems like a little bit of a fortunate bust that you managed to get in there.
Well, like, look at those buildings. Like, what more could he have done?
Really? You think so?
Did you see his
think he could just always bust if he has all his units somewhere else?
Well, I saw him pushing my main, so if he's pushing my main, then he won't be defending his natural.
Cool. Now I'm going to speed this up because we are running a little bit over time. I'm at ×2 right now, not too much faster, but I see a lot of aggression coming out from you right now. And now, if I think your typical player was in this spot, there'd be this big feeling of, ugh, I'm playing from way behind. Do you feel that at all, or are you just sort of calmly run through?
2-base against 5, not saturated, but still I have the hatcheries.
So what is your overall game plan now that you're in kind of this funky, unusual spot?
My game plan is to delay his 3rd as long as possible, so that I can get some Nidus or drop tech to harass him, and delay for my own hive tech.
We see him continuing to drop on the south side. You haven't gotten a hive yet. There's your infestation pit, and you have a ridiculous amount of gas built up for those hasty infestors. And it looks like he's kind of pinned back. He's continuing to get a lot of tanks. Do you skew your composition based upon how tank heavy or how bio heavy he is when he is going for that marine tank medevac?
Yep, I use mostly infestors to deal with the tanks, with burrowed infested Terrans, and that's how I do with that. And then they double pretty well against the Marines for the fungal growth.
Yeah, fungal growth is so stupidly strong. I love fungal growth. So he is now advancing out, and it looks like that for the most part you're opening. I mean, someone who tuned in right now would not know that you opened with this sort of no-gas style. And of course you do the surround, which does almost enough damage, but you have another 34 Zerglings coming out. What is it about your opening that you think makes this transition so strong against the Terran?
It sets you up for a very economic heavy mid game as well as larva heavy, because you have all the queens and the creep spread and that. And it also transitions well to the late game because you get the early upgrades. So it's just very solid overall, I feel.
Wow. I mean, I keep trying to ask, like, what's a big hole that you have here? What's the biggest danger? I mean, against the drop tech, it even seems like you could easily solve that with your huge mineral surplus by just popping down a whole frick ton of spine crawlers.
That's what I end up resorting to.
Yeah, I like spine crawlers. I think they're pretty cool. His scout barracks is not actually doing so well. And it looks like you're going to be cleaning this up here pretty quickly with a whole bunch of Ultralisks. I'm actually going to ×4 it. And for the record, any of you who have any questions, feel free to begin flooding those out, as we will be using Markio's amazing question grabber script. I'm going to begin poking around here. It looks like you are continuing to add on Udels and Udels of Banelings. Where is that one thing? Oh, Mark, if you could just relink me to it. For some reason, my computer's just kind of going a little nutty today, as expected. And you're doing a lot of what I would call probably like a little bit wasteful of the unit pushing, just sort of rallying stuff in there.
Yeah, that was a terrible engagement. But
well, I'm still wondering if there are ever circumstances where you're willing to be a little bit wasteful in order to delay. I mean, I think in that circumstance it kind of opens up the opportunity.
If ever I'm ahead on bases, I will definitely Baneling bust his third, the planetary at his third. Mm-hmm. Just so because, yeah.
That's like a desired mid-game, is just start flooding hard. Ooh, I even see now you are beginning to get the, where is the Night Swarm? No, now that I think of it, I actually tuned into this game a few days ago and watched you play it. Because this is right when I ended up logging on in. I was wondering whose main used to be what. So, tell us a little bit about these Nidus techniques, because, I mean, this is something that any Zerg could do, no matter what his opening, but against the Terran, I mean, as you can see, so many of his tanks are committed to the same location.
Right. The Terran, whenever you're harassing the Terran, unless he's really good, he's not going to be able to harass you, just because his multitasking will be limited. Mm-hmm. So that's basically what you want to do. Get up the extra bases while taking the hive and harassing at the same time, so that while you're in that vulnerable state of teching and saturating the bases, that you won't be in danger of being attacked.
Man, that just sucks for him. 174 to 73. Ugh. That's not the right order. It looks like he's continuing to just churn some stuff out on the north end. He's just trying to throw down as many depots as he can. Blink's not faring as well against the Planetary Fortress as they could, but no big deal. You're continuing to have like a gigantic Ultralist force. And this looks pretty clear from here. So you're just expanding, harassing. Are there any key points where you really want to be drilling hard as opposed to just planting Nidus Swarms willy-nilly?
If you're not going to expand, then I would not invest in the Nidus Swarm. I would not just plant it willy-nilly. I'd make sure that it's going to be effective, because your resource count is going to be lower than it normally would be.
So this is, you're Nidus Swarming pretty consistently. I've seen it. You mentioned it's just the tool to be able to get up more bases.
Yes.
Huh. And whenever would you just use it as part of your build to just begin ramping up the aggression? Is it just...
I do it in... I have what I consider a special build where I don't stop producing queens, and I go straight for the tier 3 units, and then I use the Nidus Swarms as a transportation for my queens so that I can transfuse the Ultra or Broodlord army that I choose to get.
Now that is kick-ass. Did you just hear that, guys? Did you just hear how brilliant that was? That is the shit. I love that. And there you're doing a little bit of neuroparasiting. Yes, I definitely have seen this game. Looks like One Shield is convinced he's still got this. He's going for it. He ain't giving up. I'm just going to give everyone the satisfaction of seeing this play out. Yeah. Yeah. Alright, I'm speeding it on up. Get more nice ones everywhere. And there's the final push, folks. And he just left the game. No GG. Oh my gosh, how tragic. Alright, sweet. So here's a question. We're going to take a couple questions from the crowd, and then I'll happily let you tell everyone where you can be found. So, Watamizu says, since this layer is so late, how does it fare against fast DTs? And I'll even throw in there, how does it deal with just fast cloak in general?
Cloaked Banshees isn't really an issue because it's easily scouted, and even if it's not, you're getting the Evo chambers as you get the layer, so worst case scenario, you bleed drones, but it's 2 base to 1 base at that situation, so you could lose like 30 drones and you'd still be ahead. That's
kind of an interesting point, I will say, because like I remember in the old Brood War days in Terran vs. Terran, if a Wraith got into Terran's base, he'd just be like, yeah, you can lose up to 12 SCVs and you're fine, as long as you expand early, and it's not a big deal.
So against DTs, it's not an issue because if he chooses to focus the hatcheries, you can always transfuse, and the queens can block the ramps, so they won't be getting to your main. So if they focus the queens, you can transfuse the queens, and so they can really only focus the drones, but then you mineral walk your drones to your main, so you're completely safe from DTs.
But, like, do you have enough time? Like, suddenly if a DT appears, are you just like, oh my gosh? Like, isn't it really fragile if you're relying on just a block at the ramp?
I don't think so. DTs, the earliest you can get them is like 7:15 or something like that without being ridiculous. And the layer timing and Evo chamber timings time up nicely with that.
Wow, awesome. Here's a good question from Entropic XG, who says, what kind of strategies would you be most worried about a Protoss and Terran player using when you play with the strategy? Because you mentioned a little bit about, you know, if someone has really good multitask drops, but I'm curious about, like, the whole overarching strategy. Like, if he opens like this and transitions to this and starts harassing like this.
If he opens Forge first with a well-timed Forge, like getting it instead of a gateway, so like 11 Forge, I think it is supposedly like an insta-win against any hatch first build, and cannon rushes are difficult to stop with that, so that's something to watch out for. 2 racks in close positions with SCV all in, I don't know how you would stop that, so that's also something to keep an eye out for.
Yeah, I still wonder if you could do something, you know, where you always opened, like, 16 pool and then try to build a hatchery. Or, you know, like 13 pool but stay heavily drone and then get a ton of queens or something like that. Because I still remember how Sen used to always open 12 pool every single game. And he would just get a stupidly fast queen and a lot of Zerglings up. So we're going to take this one final question from Templar Rage, and then I'll say goodbye to everyone. Templar Rage would like you to talk a little bit about the ZVZ nuances of this matchup, since we didn't see any ZVZ reps. I'd like to, again, note to everyone that I'm going to go here to Spanishiwa's amazing thread on teamliquid.net just to point it out. Where is it? SC2 strategy. But yeah, while you point out those nuances, Sir Spanishiwa, I'm going to open up your thread and show everyone.
Okay. So the ZVZ, you just have to make sure that you connect your main and natural with creep as soon as possible, and that your queens are always blocking the ramp. You want to scout to see if he's saving larva for the initial 6 Zerglings or 4. If it's 6, then you want to save your own larva, so that usually means Overlord on 17, and you will always be able to outproduce your opponent Zergling wise because you have that initial extra larva from your second hatchery. So that means that if you can trade off your lings early game when they're both slow lings, then you'll be substantially ahead. And then if not, you just have to place down the spine crawlers accordingly.
And do you transition to roaches in that circumstance?
I'm favoring this Queen Nidus Hive Tech gameplay. So that's what I do.
So that's just a little tease for any of you who want to see what ZVZ's like. Do you have replays of those on the thread?
I do not on the thread, but recently I've had some games casted by some popular casters.
Such as?
Showcase it. Such as Husky StarCraft and Cricket StarCraft.
Cool. So go look those up. Go to YouTube. Watch them. And since that's going to be the end of it, just want to now say, please let us know where they can find you, Spanishiwa, where they can find more of your stunning Zerg play.
You can find me on justin.tv/Spanishiwa, and I also have a Facebook like page, which I update for updates like, hey, I'm going to be on day 9 tonight, or something like that. So you can look for that as well.
Sweet. Just look up Spanishiwa and you'll show up. Are there any conflicting organizations called Spanishiwa?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay, so that you can trust Google is your friend. So that's going to wrap up today. Thank you so much for coming on, Spanishiwa, and for giving us one of the first Friendday Wednesday we've had in a long time. Sorry for the blue screen of death.
That's okay.
I promise to get a new computer soon. So I'm going to go ahead and hang up on you. Bye, Spanishiwa. Bye-bye.
See you day 9.
Bye. All right, now for next week's Fun Day Monday. Now, I want to know that this is a little bit inspired by Spanishiwa himself. Next week's Fun Day Monday. Submit these games to Monday at day9.tv. No roaches, no hydras, no mutas, no banelings, and only 12 zerglings. Seriously, I want to have just spellcasters, defensive structures, and hive tech, right? I want you to go crazy with this. I want to see some cool stuff. Monday at day9.tv. Also, for next week's Newbie Tuesday, I did a Newbie Tuesday yesterday on Wednesday, because I'm awful. It's Day 9 Daily number 285. I want you to watch that one. It's all about how to steal a build and go through the process of refining it. If you would, I want you to submit a replay pack of you refining a build. I want you to include the building groupings that we talk about in 285, the unit mixes that were talked about in 285, and the process of refining that you ended up seeing throughout your games. And also, please include the replay that inspired you, the replay build that you're trying to steal. And for that, or for next week's Newbie Tuesday, we will do an entire an entire covering of someone's copying of a build order. So it'll be just one person, but we'll look at like 10 of their games and see how that refinement process worked and talk about it. Submit that to Tuesday at day9.tv. I'm going to go, since I've been streaming forever. Go watch NASL. I'm done. Peace.